Nick McVicar here for postcoach.ca, and today we are talking about the female apprenticeship coaching program in the Canadian Collegiate Athletic Association. I'm joined by two lovely individuals who are going to help me explain what the program is and how important it's been for the Canadian Collegiate Athletic Association over the past 15, now 16 years in running. First up, we have Sandra Murray-MacDonell, the Chief Director at the CCAA. Sandra, how are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Happy to have you. And also joining us is the Danielle Sear, women's head coach at Mount St. Vincent University. Danielle, how are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you. Again, very, very happy to be here to join you guys.
We're happy to have you as well. The program is something that I think is very, very important to talk about and probably doesn't get as much recognition as it should across the intercollegiate levels. So, Sandra, I'm going to start with you. Why was it so important to get this mentorship program off the ground when it started, and what has it become over the past 15 years in your eyes?
Well, initially it was spurned on the female apprentice coach program. It became apparent that we just had a huge lack of women coaches at the collegiate level, specifically in the CCAA, but not just in the CCAA, but across all bodies, whether it was national teams, provincial teams, university teams. So there was a real gap. And at the time, we looked actually to a number of mentorship programs that were going on. There were a few that were going on. However, they were really catered to the elite coach. So the coach already had to be a certified level 2 or 3 coach. It usually was around national team programs. But there was nothing at the grassroots level for women that wanted to get into coaching. So that's how this came about. We wanted to kickstart our graduated female athletes. So those women that were in their 4th year, 5th year of the sport, maybe didn't have any eligibility left, maybe were injured, and really had the wherewithal to become coaches. They were the leaders on their teams. Often many of them had coached in camps and other capacities. And we wanted to see a way, how could we move these women that were potentially done playing at the post-secondary level and move them into the profession of coaching and kickstart their coaching at a higher level within the intercollegiate level. So that's how the female apprentice coach program came about.
And have you seen the successes start to mount over the last 15 years? Obviously, there are many more female coaches since the program started, but have the successes of the program itself started to mount over the last 15 years?
We've had tremendous success in moving our coaches into assistant coach positions at the CCAA level. In addition, many of our coaches have gone on to be high school coaches, coaching at the club level, provincial levels, even national team levels. Some have moved on into university sport. So yeah, we've had tremendous success. We've provided over 250 opportunities to young women over the last 16 years. And through some research we've done, longitudinal research, 61% of those individuals are still coaching in some capacity. So we see that as a tremendous success.
Well, 61% is incredible numbers in just the first 15 years. Danielle, I want to bring you into the conversation now. And the female apprenticeship program has obviously given the opportunities for people, but you started recently or are working on a leadership program within the FACP. What do you think that will allow for these apprentices who are going through both programs to really take into their next job or their next position?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think having the opportunity that the female apprentice coach program has provided, right, is getting those coaches in the door and being able to work with some really phenomenal mentor coaches. So I think when we looked at the leadership development program, it was kind of adding that, extra layer of giving our female apprentice coaches some of those leadership skills that go into coaching as well. Because I know, reflecting on my experience as a young female coach, the toughest situations or challenges that I've had to overcome, right, don't really have anything to do with the soccer, the technical, tactical piece. It's the relationship building and how do you lead people and how do you lead them effectively. So, and I think it's a little bit about that confidence to lead in a sport environment as well. So that's a big thing that we talk about in our leadership development is, how do we foster that confidence in ourselves as young female coaches, but also in our female athletes, right? To start that journey of leading in sport a little bit earlier for our athletes as well as our coaches. So yeah, I think it just provides that extra layer and hopefully, that little bit of maybe courage and confidence to say, hey, yeah, I can lead in this space. I have the leadership skills and I have the abilities to do this. So hopefully it'll continue to keep those coaches coaching because they feel confident in their leadership to do that.
Absolutely. And obviously, as a coach in this level that we're talking about, you've probably had some situations where you had to step up as a leader. So to be able to run that kind of program, what can you bring and what can you offer these young females that maybe a male coach wouldn't have the same sort of experience with?
For sure. Yeah. And when we look at the female and male experience in sport, right, it's pretty different. And if we want to get into the history of it, which we won't today, but if you're interested, right, you can see the difference in that experience, right, over especially the past 100 years. So I think even being able to relate to them on that level of, hey, we were both varsity athletes. We share that similar experience, but now I can share some of my experience as a female coach and a young female coach. As well, right? I'm only 28. So I've, for some of them we're around the same age, which is, a nice connection piece. But I think it's, sometimes being able to give that perspective of, coming into these spaces where you might not see a lot of other female coaches at the university level, which, male mentor coaches, they haven't experienced that, right? So I think it's about sharing, some of my successes of, going into those spaces and what worked well, but also sharing, some of the things that didn't work very well, and giving them that insight a little bit earlier on in their career for sure.
Absolutely. And you talk about growing up with mostly male coaches. Like that's sort of the norm. It has been for the past, forever really in sport. How important do you think having a female coach to coach a female athlete is moving forward? And do you think it's going to become the actual norm as opposed to having male coaches in those positions? I'm going to ask both of you, but I'll start with you, Danielle.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's incredibly important for, our female athletes to see females leading, because I think sport translates to society and society to sport. So the more that we have females leading in all positions, the more I think our athletes will see, hey, I can do that too. So that whole idea of see it to be it, whether it's in the sports space or, in business or education or whatever it is for them. And I also think it's incredibly important for our female, coaches to be mentors and leaders for our male athletes as well. I think, to bring in that diverse perspective into both sports spaces is incredibly important. And, I think it shows us a little bit of a different way of leading and bringing some of those attributes that maybe, women might bring into that space to create a more full experience, for our female athletes and our male athletes.
Absolutely. And Sandra, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I echo what Danielle has said. I mean, it's so important to have those role models, right? Those female role models. And what Danielle mentioned before, it's building that confidence, right? So, we'll often see, head coaches applying for positions, and often they're men, and they may not have any more experience or know-how than the female applying, but it's harder for our women to apply. There is a lack of confidence. They feel that they need to be that much better than their male counterparts to step into a situation. So, I think it's so important to have those female role models to show our young leaders, our young women coming up, that is you can do it, and it should be the way it is. What we're experiencing, it's not only in the coaching, but also in the board and athletic director level. we have 99 member institutions, and only 27 of those institutions are led by female athletic directors. But if you do the research, many of the administrators are women under the athletic directors. So again, we need to make that next step. And Danielle and I have spoke about this often. My hope is again building that confidence and providing those tools to our young mentees and young administrators to feel confident in moving into the head coach position. I'm just this program that Danielle is running is so important. It really does augment what we're doing in the female apprentice coach program. While our mentors are providing sort of that hands-on experience to our mentees in a normal year, they are. And we're also, part of our program is that our apprentices also have to get some NCCP training. Again, that builds confidence, that builds their capacity. But I think, again, that extra push and confidence building as far as the program that's running right now with Danielle is so important to aid our apprentices right now. So
you mentioned the odd year that it has been in 2020. How did that affect the program as a whole, both the leadership program, Danielle, which we'll get to, but I want to start with the female apprenticeship program first with you, Sandra. How did it affect how it was kind of put out this past year?
Well, as I mentioned at the onset with you, I feel that our female apprentice coach program is one of the only bright lights this year in a very dark year without competition. But that being said, of course, without competition, it's been very difficult, for our mentors and our apprentices to have that hands-on, experience. But I think, again, the program that was rolled out this year with Danielle, it was perfect timing, because it did fill that gap in competition. So Danielle has successfully engaged not only our apprentices in this program, but also our mentors and our athletic directors of those programs that are receiving female apprentice coach program funding this year. So we actually have 19 apprentices this year, more than ever. And we've had very positive feedback on the female apprentice coach program this year, and specifically in relation to the leadership program that Danielle's running. So.
And Danielle, the leadership program, how were you able to roll that out with as much success as Sandra was just talking about?
Sure. Yeah. I think a big piece of it, which was phenomenal with the program, was really creating this network of female apprentice coaches. I think previously, right, they kind of worked in their own little silos with their mentor coaches and their athletic directors at their school, but never really had the chance to, connect with some of these other female apprentice coaches who are in the same position as them, maybe going through some of the same things as them. So I think, Zoom and, what COVID has kind of shaken up our world a little bit, has really provided an opportunity to create that connection and to create that network. So I think that's been a huge, huge part of, the success this fall with the program, is for the female apprentice coaches. Getting that chance to connect has been huge for them, and it has been one of the most valuable and positive things that they've taken from the program, from some of the feedback that we've gotten from them. I think as well, it's, a great chance for them to continue exploring some of their coaching, especially for some of our apprentices who didn't have the opportunity maybe to get on the field or court or course this fall. So some of them have, and they've been able to kind of implement some of those leadership skills and things that we've talked about. But for others, this is a time kind of reflection and taking in that knowledge to hopefully maybe this term, get in some training or some exhibition games. So yeah, I think it came at a unique time where our female apprentice coaches were maybe looking for a little bit more because of, what COVID has taken away from us this year. So it was a great opportunity for them to be able to connect, to learn and reflect.
And that's the biggest thing, is the connections, right? And building that moving forward after 2020 and moving into the 2021 season. do you think the leadership program will continue to do those Zoom calls, and the female apprentice program as well, to do those Zoom calls, to keep the connections building, to keep the network growing like that? Or is it going to kind of be a little bit fewer and farther between?
I mean, I would love to see that. So I'll let maybe Sandra speak on this too. But I think, we're gathering some feedback and some research and discussion from the group as well. So, it's going to be, I think, looking at that and finding ways to, if this delivery will work, when we're in full competition and full season, or maybe we'll have to adapt a little bit. But absolutely, I'm all in for it to continue.
And Sandra, your thoughts?
For sure. Very excited to see the feedback that's coming through from the program this year. In addition, we normally have progress reports and final reports that come in from our female apprentice coach program. And definitely building the networks. So moving forward, it seems like a natural fit that we can continue to have some form of avenue for our apprentices to come together, in whether it's some kind of blog or whether it's some kind of communication piece behind the scenes, so they can speak to one another, what they're experiencing, what they've come up against. And it'll be so interactive, I think, once the competition starts and once they have teams and they're working with their teams. What a value added that would be. So, they can talk about specific instances and even building relationships. So maybe some of the relationships that they're having with their mentor coaches or with their athletic programs, how has one worked through one situation? They can talk to, with another apprentice and see how they've managed it. So I think there's going to be some value added specifically with that networking piece. As far as the time to do many of the Zoom calls, I think we want to augment the information that we provide to our apprentices and our mentors, because once they get on the field, I don't know how much they're going to want to be, in class as well. So the time factor might come into effect. But again, I think there are pieces that we are going to take and want to move on, and with Danielle's assistance, move those pieces on. One of the other things that has come out is, we normally apply for apprentice coach program annually. So it's an annual sort of initiative. One of the things that we're seeing, and we've heard now a couple of years, is that ability to potentially keep our coaches as apprentices or mentees for a longer period of time. So, again, continue to build that confidence, that competency over maybe a 2-year period, as opposed to it's a 1 year, hoping our institutions will continue to have them around as apprentice or assistant coaches. But if we provide that incentive to continue maybe over a 2-year period, that might also help our apprentices move into a more secure position and coaching position on that team.
Absolutely. And one of the other big things that happened in 2020 was the women in sports movement has come to the forefront of the sport conversation. And we saw it with the WNBA, the NWSL, the NWHL, and even the leagues over in Europe with the FA Women's Super League. How important do you think getting coaches in those roles to kind of keep that positive momentum going will be to a program like your own, the female apprenticeship program, to keep it growing as well, Sandra?
I think it's key. I mean, I think it's sort of my hope is to move our apprentices into assistant coach positions and eventually into head coach positions, and really provide a grown pathway for those graduated student athletes, moving them into an apprentice, moving them into an assistant coach position, and then eventually head coach position. And then once in a head coach position, what we often find is once they do get into a head coach position, we hope to keep them in the CCAA, but we're realistic. Once they get that experience, they will be moving on into, youth sport, they move on to national team program, and it's all good. We are part of that pathway, and that is our role. So again, into professional, into other associations beyond us is all positive. So we are just part of the sport picture, the Canadian sport landscape, and we are just part of that cog. And again, that is our role, and we're happy to have that role. We think it's an important role to play.
Absolutely. And Danielle, what are your thoughts on the whole women in sports and how important this apprenticeship program is to help continue to grow that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the biggest thing for me that I've recognized this year with the movement of especially that professional level and the interest that's being garnered at the women's professional level is, every level of women and girls in sports impacts all of those other levels, right? So if we want, our grassroots and our university to continue to grow, right? Well, that professional realm is going to impact that and vice versa. So I think, the more change and momentum we see at each level, it's just going to help every other level continue, right, to grow and really to see that value in women and girls leading in sport and participating in sport.
Absolutely. I want to finish off with kind of what you are hoping this will eventually lead to. And I know we've sort of talked about it with both of you, like where you want this program to go. But for Sandra, in your eyes, the true success of this program in 10, 15, 20 years would be what?
I think introducing our women to the profession of coaching and providing them with tools and the wherewithal to have success in coaching. So that has been, I think, key. I mean, as I indicated, we provided over 250 opportunities to women, and with 61% still being in coaching, I think it's been a tremendous success in that regard.
Absolutely. And Danielle, the leadership program, in 10, 15, 20 years, if I asked you, is it a success? You could say yes because of what?
Yeah, that our female apprentice coaches have gone on and they feel confident to lead. And whether that's in sport, whether that's, in their professional lives, that they have some of those skills and abilities to have their voice and perspective in those spaces, because that's huge. And especially, when we think of women and girls participating in sport, right? The decision making that happens in those spaces, needs to have that female perspective. So, like Sandra spoke about before, whether that's in our CCAA environment or whether it's in the club environment or professional national team, it's just seeing more women in those coaching roles.
That's fantastic. Well, Sandra, thank you for joining me today. Danielle, thank you for joining me today. This is a conversation that is going to continue to happen regarding females in sport, and the apprenticeship program is just one of the huge ways that you guys are helping that. So thank you for doing what you're doing, to both of you. On behalf of us here at Post Coach, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and we will definitely have you guys back on soon.
Thanks so much for having us.
All right. That'll be it for us here at postcoach.ca. Make sure you check out our upcoming series coming out, and we will talk to you guys all soon.